So just real quick, kind of what we'll be going over today. In our session, who we are, who we serve. We have a list of instruments that we've been making or plan on making here soon. And then I wanted some time to just share out any ideas that you may have gotten from what we've talked about. We already had one posted about the camp and any questions you may have. So I'm going to go ahead, and my colleague Jenny here is going to introduce us and start us off.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. My name is Jenny Lent. I am the assistant to the executive director for educational programs at Intermediate Unit 1. On with me today, you've already heard my colleague Sarah Urzo, our coordinator for innovation and design, who also oversees operations in our Fab Lab as well. In addition to that, we also have on the call with us today Dr. Kristen Sheftick, who's our assistant executive director.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Jenny.
So Intermediate Unit 1, to give you an idea of who we are and who we serve, we are an educational service agency. So our job is to service the school districts in our 3-county area. So we service 25 school districts and 5 career and technical centers inside of our boundaries. We have 3 stationary Fab Labs, 1 in each of our campus schools, which we'll talk about in a moment. And we also have 2 mobile labs. We have a 28-foot trailer, and then we also have a van as well. We really encourage students to explore the engineering and design process. And today's focus will be around music in our Fab Lab and how we've connected that. Our Fab Labs service, our stationary labs service students who have special education and social emotional needs. So our intermediate unit runs 3 what we call campus schools, where students with special education needs and social emotional needs or mental health needs attend school. And our labs are in those schools. So our music focus also has a social emotional component as well.
And then if you guys wanted to check out more about our lab, we have, like Jenny mentioned, the 3 stationary. We also have 2 mobile units that we use to service our 25 school districts that we serve. But if you just scan that little QR code up there at the top, it'll take you to a little bit more about our Fab Lab. So go ahead and move into our music and digital fabrication. But why it's important and what we can create. And so we've started with our Fab Lab, after seeing what we've kind of talked about earlier in the session, moving away from something that is you start making your keychains and your heat press material, but then you want to kind of dive into something a little bit deeper. So we've had our Fab Labs for a little over 6 years, maybe. And that's something that we've started to kind of build upon are these projects. And this year, our focus has been on music and digital fabrication. So our campus schools don't have the traditional art and or music classroom. These are things that we would have to bring in for them. So I do have some discussion at the end about artist and residency programs and how we've also incorporated those with our Fab Lab and other ways that you could incorporate arts and or music into the Fab Lab if you don't necessarily have those programs within your school already or for your students. And music always adds an interdisciplinary approach, especially through the Fab Lab, where they can just replicate something that they've seen and they like, they can make it, or just simply enjoy the music, especially for students that we serve that have special education or mental health concerns, focusing on that social and emotional learning. It is something that is very calming and soothing and can keep them on task and focused. So some of the instruments we're exploring today these are some of the ones that we've made. And the ones that we will be focusing on today are the Mando Harp, a Maraca, we have a box guitar, the Kalimba, which I believe I saved for last, and the rhythm drum. Some of the other ones have either already been made or we will be making those in the future. And if you guys do have any questions, please feel free to either ask them in the chat or you're welcome to unmute and ask away. There we go. So this is one of the, it's technically a noise maker. So we started to do some research on types of things that we could reproduce in our Fab Lab. Some of them may have started off as kits. Others may have just been the actual device. We could have ordered it from Amazon, which I don't know if they'll be sharing out these slides, but I'm happy to share out all of the sources where we found these. So this one happened to be something that we found on Amazon, along with the train whistle that I had mentioned. And I believe there was another one that we found on there, but we haven't started that project yet. But this one, the noisemaker, I was calling it a clacker, but I don't even know how to say that correctly, Matraca. But it is quite loud. We ordered it and then started to prototype it with the students and with our Fab Lab teachers. And we ended up with a design that we were able to reproduce from the laser cutter. We did try a 3D printed model. However, it was not as durable as we would have liked. So we would have to check into some different filaments to make sure that we could find something that wouldn't break that center component whenever you twisted it, because that was the problem we were running into. So this is just made out of, I believe, 1/8 inch plywood and laser cut the design on our epilogue that we have. So I have a little video of the sounds it makes down here for you. Little muffled because it is a rather loud when you actually like wind it around. But it was a simple design, and this was something where the students found they could just layer up the wood and then just kind of glue it and use clamps to press it together. The only thing we didn't make on it was obviously the dowel rod. Those were just purchased and then cut down to size. This was a great introduction piece to kind of talking about music, how things work. It was a great introduction piece too for students that may have been new to the Fab Lab and may have not had a chance to otherwise make some additional items in the Fab Lab, such as keychains or heat press shirts or things like that. Kind of a low risk project where they don't feel like there's that component of, I can't do it, I'm going to fail. This was a great project to introduce them, get them started, and then they get to take home this really cool noisemaker.
We also didn't want to overwhelm students at the beginning with something that required a little more skill to play. So all students could play this noisemaker. So we wanted them to be successful right from the start.
The next project that we moved on to, we actually found was this Mando Harp, which you can see is just made out of cardboard, rubber bands, and then they did put a small dial rod up there just to give that space up there. This was something that, again, we sourced from Amazon. It comes in a kit that you're able to purchase, but then we ended up just remaking it and making it our own. They actually just finished this project at our one campus school. So I had gone up to get some pictures of them, but the kids were too excited and took them all home already. So I didn't have any videos of them playing them, but they were able to laser cut out. We did use cardboard for these, but they laser cut out the actual pieces. And some wanted to have their own designs lasered, others painted or drew on theirs. But this was a nice intro piece because, as I mentioned, we were doing a box guitar and then we're hoping to build up to an electric guitar. So these are things that we were kind of hoping are small projects, again, to start off with students feeling comfortable and gaining those skills that they needed to create, and then moving into bigger, more intense projects that really dived into music.
And one thing I'll share too is that our Fab Lab teachers have really grabbed onto this idea of music in the Fab Lab. And even though they're not music teachers by any means, they have done research on the instruments, learned how to play the instruments that they're making so that they're able to share that with the students. So they really were excited about this, and they have all shared with me that this is their favorite course that they teach.
Next, this project, actually, I wanted to make sure that I showed both of the designs that came out of this. This was something that we didn't purchase from Amazon, but it can be found on Amazon. I just wanted to provide a link. This was something that was student designed. So you can see the two different designs that they came up with. Students started to, again, go with that layered wood effect, but you can see the painted version where they kind of did a different stack on that. So it allows the students a range to express and design how they kind of see. It also provides that design process, design thinking, where they go through several prototypes to see what's working, what could work, what might not work, and what works best. But these were the two prototypes that they kind of came up with. And then they just filled them with whatever might have been lying around. But I think these ones they brought in rice and beans to fill them with. And again, this was a project that was made earlier on in the year, so all of the students had taken them home. These were our two samples that we had left from the kids. But this project was nice because they also dived into different ways that the maracas could be used, why they were used, cultural significance, and things like that. They started to dive in and explore a little bit more behind the music of a maraca. So this is a project that is currently going on. This was a project that was discovered by one of our teachers that were interested in, who knew how to play guitar, wanted to kind of bring that into the classroom. So we discovered these kits. They are actually a cigar box guitar, I believe is what they are called. And we are in the process of replicating and making our own. So what the students are currently doing is making pressure fit cases and designing the outside of the box. We just purchased like the strings and the additional pieces up on the top for the guitar. The students also found that they did some research on how to tune it. So they went through and several of them found an app that they were able to use to assist in tuning the guitar. So just through this prototype here, the students were able to start to design and replicate their own models. And then we'll be building and putting those together for an end of the year project. And then this is our one Fab Lab teacher who so it does have a pretty good sound. And our goal with this is to bring in, we work with local artist agencies that actually come in to have artist in residency projects, and focusing projects such as this box guitar and the kalimba that I'll be showing you here soon around those artist in residency projects, and having them dive a little bit deeper into the music, getting to know how to play the instrument a little bit more in depth, and not just behind the building process of it. But like I mentioned, this is again a kit. So the pieces were just kind of taken apart and then rebuilt and made their own by the students with the help of the teacher.
I think with all of the projects that we do, the Fab Lab is a vehicle to access the content in other content areas. And the Fab Lab has been a fantastic vehicle for us to really access that music content for our students.
The kalimba is one of our other projects that we are working on. So we have a campus school that is currently working on the box guitar and one that is working on the kalimba. This was, again, something that we found you could purchase from this harp kit. And you can actually purchase just the components for it, which is what we ended up doing. So you can purchase those tines, the bar, and then there's another piece that goes under that bar that kind of holds everything together. But what we started to do was making our own. So to allow for affordability for that, as well as allowing the students a chance to kind of experiment with how they might want to make it. So we have one that's up in the top left there. That one's actually layered. Again, the prototype was a layered box that went up. So there's just kind of like a few frames in the middle and then two solid pieces on the top. And it has a wood base underneath that metal bar. And then the one that is on the right was a case that was pressure fit together, and it has a 3D printed base underneath that metal bar. I'm still using the same metal bar and tines, but two different types of composition. You can see, you can put your own design on it, which is awesome. One went for a beach theme, the other one has a camping theme. But I make sure to include videos of both so you can kind of hear how it's different or see if there are any differences. This is the one. That one has the wood base underneath the bar with the layered type wood. And then this one has the 3D printed bar with the pressure fit case. He was recording while playing, so that was a little difficult, but you could see how it kind of seemed like it didn't really make too much of a difference depending on what that base was or what style box design. We are currently researching how to purchase those tines. You can purchase them individually like that, or you can get a whole roll of just that material and then cut them down to size. So we still have some more experimenting to do and prototyping with that one. However, the project itself has come out pretty well so far. So we're hoping to have the students complete this project by the end of the year and then incorporate, again, more of the in-depth lesson in music along with the Kalimba at the end of the project once they each have their own. Keeps doing that. This is another one. I believe we did make this further on up the year, but a rhythm drum. So the students were able to laser cut. Some of them decorated, as you can see, with tape and added their own kind of flair to it there, but just laser cut different layers of the wood and then attached to that dial rod there. And they were able to make a pretty effective rhythm drum. I did include a source there where you could find them. Ours, again, we just kind of prototyped and made ourselves. And that's just a thin little layer of plastic, not acrylic, that's on there on the top to make the sound. So we shared some of our ideas that we've come up with to incorporate music into our digital fabrication labs that we have. I don't know if any of you want to take some time to share any of your ideas that you have or that you have been using in your classroom or have done. You can unmute or type in the chat. I'm fine either way. Yes, Daniel.
Very nice projects you just showed us. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wondering about the first project. You have sort of a roulette or a star that hits the wood and make the noise. And I take the space between the hammers is equal. So that I was wondering if you had any experience with the students to recreate different beats, changing the number and the angle between the hammers in that middle part, running, spinning part?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't believe that we have had them. I don't believe they've done anything to alter that dowel rod with the center in it. But what they have played with was the length of the actual instrument itself. Some had made shorter and some had kept it like a little bit longer than the prototype originally came in when we kind of were trying to recreate it. That we've done to kind of create different sounds that way, but we haven't changed like the tines on that dial to come up with a different sound. But that's a great idea to try to test that and see what that would come up with.
A compass or maybe 2 compasses, and then you have a specific amount of hammers to recreate a beat, like a waltz or a samba or rock, and then that would be geometry cross line with the music straight away. So that I was curious about, and this may be a further prototype, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great idea.
That was my question. Thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
That's a fantastic idea. Definitely to add on top of what we've done here. That would be a fantastic idea to try with students.
We had a share about Chrome Music Labs to experiment with music theory before fabrication. That's awesome. I've used that before. That's a great program to use to introduce students into the basics of music and kind of just experience it themselves. Definitely recommend checking that out. Is there anything else anybody would like to share? Oh, sorry, Lex.
It's all good. I just wanted to ask if you've ever given any thought to like how you could integrate computer science and computer coding into some of these instruments. I did work with my comp sci class last year, specifically around like Pharrell Williams Yellow software. And I wonder if you've tried integrating any of these instruments into like a computer science program to teach coding.
No, currently, no, we have not. This is the first year that we've kind of fluidly and introduced the music project. So not just 1 or 2 here and there, it's been a whole year of music. But that is definitely something we could look into and would add an awesome extra layer to music and digital fabrication, including the coding aspect of it. Right now, the students are just kind of getting into knowing the basics of it and just kind of experiencing it. A lot of our focus also reflected around social emotional learning with the students and providing those students the moments to reflect on not only what they were creating, but the sounds that they were creating, kind of how they felt, what they thought about those, but adding that digital element into it of coding would be an awesome added layer. So it's something we could definitely check out and check into.
I think that's a great idea, Lex. And one of our 25 districts, when we were talking about creating this course, they don't have a music course, but they do make 3D printed violins that are connected to some computer science as well. And that's something that I'm hoping our students will do in the end as well. So great idea.
Thank you so much. Love the 3D printed violins and a great presentation. Thank you.
You were saying something about asking the students how the sounds make them feel. I was curious to hear more about how you tie it into, is it just like, hey, we're going to make noise now? Or like, is there a process around talking about it and putting it in the context of the larger picture?
So one thing that I think that I forgot to mention at the beginning when I introduced our labs is, in addition to our Fab Lab teacher, because our students have social emotional needs and special education needs, we have a social worker that's inside of our Fab Lab who's been trained on the equipment as well. So that social worker provides a lot of SEL moments and helps our Fab Lab teacher create SEL moments within the curriculum and the lesson plan. So for example, if we have a lesson planned on sound, that social worker might take over a component where she does an SEL 5-minute lesson on sound and refocusing, closing your eyes, focusing on the sound. How do you feel, to prepare the students to then move into the making part and to recenter them. So I think that's key too in our lab, that our social emotional aspect is taught by the teacher, but also the social worker that's in the lab as well. And Sarah, I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, sorry.
No, it was just, I was gonna kick it to you anyway, but they, I've been in the classroom with them when our social worker was in there, or she was doing some of the exercise with the students. And we realized that most of her exercises that she started doing with the students did start off with sound. And that's kind of where the expectation of tying in more of the instruments throughout the digital fabrication courses that they were doing would really benefit them. She was using a, it wasn't a symbol, it was like a triangle, but it wasn't. So it was very soothing, but it was to help them focus on their breathing and reflecting on calming down, and or just kind of starting with a fresh perspective when they were coming into the classroom. So that's kind of how she started the classroom, and things kind of just transpired from there with the music projects. I'm not saying that they reflect and listen to every single one, because that clacker is quite loud. So that was just like a fun one. Some of them are just fun projects, but things like the box guitar and the kalimba are things that they can kind of dive a little bit deeper into and explore further in terms of social emotional learning.
So in the chat, someone had asked if we have examples of lesson plans. We do. They're posted to the Scope site. We have a collection on there on mental wellness. We have 3 activities that our social worker has posted lesson plans that integrate with the Fab Lab lesson plans as well. One of those does deal with sound. One of them is with light. So there are a couple of different examples of how we integrate the social worker into a Fab Lab lesson. And those are posted, that link's posted in the chat.
I have one more question. You mentioned that it was like the teacher's favorite activity was to bring music in, and I'm curious, is that because of it's having a really market effect on the students compared to other types of lessons?
I don't know that we've measured the effects of music. We have done some studies in the area of social emotional learning and the effects of the Fab Lab in general, and have data to support the effects, the social emotional learning aspects on students by coming to the lab. We haven't done that with the music part, but I do believe that our teachers are saying that students in that class are extremely engaged with that music component integrated in as well. We don't have any hard data though with that.
A lot of what kind of focused around the interest in the music was the students. Sometimes they find projects, the electric guitar being one of them, that they were kind of interested in and seeing if it could be made in the Fab Lab. We have found that projects that are hands-on more so than, and it was also moving away from the heat pressing of a shirt or building the keychains, things that we could dive into to focus a little bit more on their interests and provide them with opportunities that we didn't necessarily have on a daily basis in the classroom. So we don't have a set music teacher or set art teacher, and ways we can give them those experiences through the Fab Lab is kind of why the drive for the music this year sort of happened, was around that. And a lot of the projects that we found we're also just pure interest on ourselves to see if we could recreate something like that in the Fab Lab, to test it out and see what would happen. One of the things that we do currently have going on is an artist in residency program, and it is with a group called Bricolage, and they are a performance arts group, but it's not theater necessarily as much as it is, they call it like a midnight radio show. So it's not students acting out scenes, they're actually reading from a script in the style that they are kind of producing this radio performance. So this is normally tied into a subject that they're working on. For example, they've done history lessons, Civil War, things like that. And a lot of these, they have props that they need to make the sounds with. So normally if it was somebody falling, there's like this gigantic sack that they throw around and it like falls down, or if it's lightning and they're shaking one of those boards. But they have been focusing on and working on how to use the Fab Lab to also incorporate that in there to make sound props. So things like the clacker could kind of be that spun around, could also be incorporated. The maracas, I think they were using for rain effects and things like that. So they were able to kind of add in some of these elements from the Fab Lab that they've learned through the music lessons and incorporating those into this residency program that they have with the performance company. So that's been pretty cool to see what they've come up with there, to kind of expand that. And the Bricolage company has come to work with our students for several years now, and they put on a final performance and the students get to kind of show everybody what they've been up to, which is great. And then I see that we had some questions about, and yes, we do need support starting this project. Any ideas? This is something that was our end goal, was kind of leading to this electric guitar to incorporate as an actual class. So this wouldn't just be for our students, but also sort of the train the trainer model, and doing that and training our teachers in our local area that have Fab Labs and digital fabrication units to do this within their own school. So this is a big project that we've been working up to, but it's something that we hope to get started. Right now, as far as we've gotten is we've actually just, again, ordered kits to kind of see where we could get started and what we might be able to do. So that's still very fresh and in the works. And I do have a link for the performance company, and I will try to find that and put that in there for you for Bricolage.
Also with the electric guitar, believe it or not, we're in Pennsylvania and a Fab Lab from Alaska came to visit us pre-pandemic, and they actually brought the electric guitar project with them. It's something that they did with their students. So they worked with our Fab Lab manager at the time to talk about how they use their equipment to cut out the guitar, what they use for strings. So we do have a little bit of an idea of how that project could move forward, but again, like Sarah said, we're in the beginning stages. And thank you, Sarah, for posting the Bricolage link.
Anybody else have any questions? Or, I mean, it doesn't even have to be about music. If anybody has any questions of others, how they got started, if you want to add, if anything related to music or your own Fab Lab. We have 5 minutes.
Yep, I was just 5 minutes. You're right.
I will throw our contact up there for us. If we want to take the last 5 minutes to answer any questions, if you have questions about our labs or what anybody else might be doing, now is the time. I'm currently writing down all the links that you guys have shared with us, so thank you for that.
I was just going to ask, how did you get the Bricolage artist in residence partnership going? We're trying to do something really similar with a Cambridge-based theater company. So I'd love to know, like, how did you get that started? And how is it going, I guess?
So that project started, oh goodness, probably maybe 3 or 4 years ago. We've worked with them for several years. they were looking to get into the education world in terms of their residency projects, and they started working with a local school district. And they started working solely with like the history teacher and their performance teacher, and the students would write their script, come up with what they were doing, and then they put on a performance at the end of the year. So they had piloted it there and found it was quite successful, and then wanted to expand. And since IU1 does work with 25 school districts in our area, we were able to kind of connect them that way. So they were able to expand out their program. And they actually did one, you might find this pretty cool, but they did one with the NXT robots, I believe. So they incorporated, I don't know how I missed that performance, but they did incorporate, there was robots driving around somewhere on that stage, making noises, but they were able to incorporate some coding and programming in there as well. So they're very flexible. They've done a great job in terms of, you know, working with the students of all needs, because our campus school students do have special education needs, and working with your general education students. But it's been I mean, they've come back several years. So we kind of just reach out through them that way. I think it was just a communication thing and kind of what they're interested in. They come out about, I think they do like a 10-week residency program, or there's shorter versions as well that you could do depending on how much time you have and how far you want to space it out. So they can do different variations for you. So they'll normally come out around 2 to 3 days a week, and then it ends in a final performance.
I'll add to that too. That organization partnered with a foundation to give grants to school districts, and they used our intermediate unit as a vehicle to get districts involved and to award grants to come out. So it was kind of a partnership, not just with Bricolage, but also with this grant foundation who supported that artist in residency as well. I think that's important to mention too.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful.
You're welcome. Any other questions or anybody else that would like to share? Thank you guys all for coming. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're able to make some of these projects on your own. Like I said, if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, even if it's not about the music aspect of it. I'm happy to share with you those sources if you do need them to kind of get your projects off the ground and running. And if you do create anything, feel free to share with us. I'd be excited to see what you guys create.
And thank you, Rick. I'd like to thank everyone for joining too. And if you're ever interested in partnering with another Fab Lab, we're always welcoming to partners on any kind of Fab Lab projects, music and any other topics too. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah and Jenny, for the session. It is just about time. They're going to either be automatically or maybe manually moving us back to the main session. So I'm gonna stop the recording and thank you very much for presenting today. It was wonderful.